Welcome to CCN News. I'm your host, Captivating Christian, and here are some of your top stories for today, March 12th. Donald Trump captured in a hot mic moment after the coronavirus address to the nation. Trump fears emergency declaration would contradict coronavirus message. States shuffle polling locations to protect seniors from the virus. A U.S. Customs officer is charged with smuggling nearly 40 pounds of cocaine. And the coronavirus, is it a greater threat to blacks? Also, are African Americans poorer today than 5 years ago? Let's get to the news. So it seems as if President Donald Trump apparently didn't know the cameras were still rolling after he addressed the nation last night. Watching a C-SPAN video revealed that Trump nonchalantly lamented an okay as he ripped his mic off. Typically, a president gives the address to the nation, then pauses until he knows that the cameras and things are off. It is unclear why Donald Trump did not do this last night. If you would like to see the clip of the president towards at the end of his speech when he thought the cameras was off, it will be below in the description box. On to our next story. And President Donald Trump is reluctant to declare an expansive emergency to combat the escalating coronavirus outbreak, fearful of stoking panic with such dramatic step, according to 3 people familiar with the story. Instead, the president is expected to sign within days what the White House calls for a more limited designation to allow federal government to cover small business loans, pay checks for hourly workers, and delay tax bills, giving him a way to begin boosting the economy without waiting for Congress to sign off on an economic stimulus package. An emergency declaration would go significantly beyond that move, bringing in the Federal Emergency Management Agency and freeing up funds and resources for states struggling to maintain a rapidly spreading virus. Trump's concern at this point is that going further would hamper his narrative that the coronavirus is similar to a seasonal flu. The threat of the coronavirus is upending voting in certain precincts, and election officials move polling places from nursing homes to protect senior citizens who may be more susceptible to the virus. Last-minute shuffling has left voters in Michigan and Missouri scrambling to get new polling places for their Tuesday primaries. Officials in the state voting next week are trying to get ahead of the disruptions by announcing changes now and beginning public information campaigns to tell voters where they are to go to cast their ballots. In Ohio, the election chief on Monday ordered the relocation of all polling places at nursing homes, more than 140 of them, within 8 days ahead of the primary. Moving the polling places may be the right public health move, but it certainly creates challenges for the election administrators. Those include informing voters in the surrounding areas of the changes and ensuring retirement community residents have transportation to their new polling locations. CNN is reporting that prosecutors say the U.S. Customs Border Protection officer accused of smuggling nearly 40 pounds of cocaine was caught when a police dog raised an alarm over his carry-on luggage at an Atlanta airport. Ivan Van Beaverhound, 40 years old, pleaded not guilty on Monday in Atlanta to charges of allegedly possessing and intending to distribute a controlled substance and the possession of a firearm. An attorney for Beaverhound did not immediately respond to the request for comment. Van Beaverhound was stationed in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and one of his duties was to inspect flights in order to prevent the importance of controlled substances, according to the news release from the U.S. Attorney General's office in Atlanta. Even though we like to think of racial segregation as a thing of the past, which was illegally outlawed in the U.S. by the Civil Rights Act of 1964, unfortunately it continues today. African Americans and other people of color are more than likely to live amongst their own racial groups than they are among whites. African Americans are affected disproportionately by every disease and health condition. Statistics from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, otherwise known as the NIAID, just to see what the current data said about how we fared as it relates to infectious diseases in general in this country. According to NIAID, African Americans account for about 13% of the U.S. population, yet represent almost half new AIDS diagnosis, 21% of reported TB cases in the U.S. born persons, 55.4% of reported gonorrhea cases, and 38.1% of reported syphilis cases, 5 to 7 times the rate among white men and women of reported chlamydia. Among the highest rated of chronic hepatitis C and hepatitis C related deaths compared to other ethnic groups. African Americans were more likely to be unemployed than Americans overall back in 2018 than they were back in 2013, according to a new study that details the economic and financial progress African Americans have made over 5 years. Researchers at the Lending Tree, a popular website that connects borrowers with lenders, found that while unemployment decreased for African Americans by 36% from 16.6% in 2013 to now 10.6% in 2018, it was still 5% points higher than the unemployment rate for Americans as a whole. The unemployment rate for Americans overall in 2013 was at 9.7%, which fell to 5.9% back in 2018. This study also found that the median household income for African Americans grew by 13.4%, roughly the same rate of 13.7% for Americans as a whole, but it remains 33% below the national average. The study revealed that the median household income for blacks in 2018 was about $40,155, more than $20,000 less than the $60,293 median household income for Americans as a whole. The median individually earned for African American workers, which were already at 16% lower than the median personal earnings for American workers as a whole, grew by 7.1% compared to the 9.5% for workers as a whole. That means that the earning gap between African Americans and Americans as a whole has increased by 11.2% between 2013 to 2018. Although household incomes increase, the income gap between Black Americans and Americans as a whole remains steady at a 33%. In comparison to the wage gap between Black Americans and Americans as a whole has increased 11% from 2013 to 2018, while home ownership rates fell for Americans overall between 2013 to 2018. Blacks saw a more significant drop from 4.7 compared to with the 1.8% of Americans as a whole. And once again, thank you for watching CCN News. I am your host, Captivating Christian. And as always, be the change you want to see. If you want change, the change starts with you. As always, please like, share, and subscribe. And leave comments below. I would like to hear what you think about these stories and more. All right, have a good day. Peace.